can do so without being a nationalist, without having your politics defined by national identity. My politics are defined by a different set of issues. And we've heard some of the environmental opportunities that Scotland has in abundance. We've heard also in one intervention about some of the environmental threats, such as Mr. Trump. And I would remind those who want to throw this in the face of the independence movement that it was Jack McConnell, a Labour First Minister, who first courted the interest of Mr. Trump and his destructive enterprise, which has now been given the go-ahead. I'm someone who's given Mr. Swinney and Mr. Salmond a hard time over the years for the way that they facilitated that destructive development. But it was not a nationalist project. It was a project that had support, including from the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, as well as the Scottish National Party. I think that that decision, many people will come to regret. I think many people, including Mr. Salmond, already have come to regret it, and not just because of the tastelessness and bullying attitude with which Mr. Trump has pursued his agenda. But it was not something that was put in motion by the current administration. Now, if we look at the kind of reforms that many people in Scotland want to see, and I count many people in the no side as desiring these reforms as well. There are many people who want a decent, clear constitutional settlement for Scotland, not just in terms of more powers for the Scottish Parliament, which makes sense, but a written constitution, a more democratic constitution, a constitution which says power is vested with the people. At the moment we have this strange contradiction in Scotland, a long-standing constitutional principle that power and sovereignty lies with the people. One day there will come a time, even if Scotland votes no, one day there will come a time where that unstoppable force of Scottish popular sovereignty meets the immovable object of the sovereignty of the Crown in Parliament. The concepts of sovereignty in Scotland and the UK are fundamentally different, and there will come a time when we need to resolve that. I just don't see that happening in the context of the UK. The UK's political culture and institutions have shown themselves utterly incapable of reform. They can't even get rid of an unelected Chamber of Parliament after 100 years of trying, near enough. I don't see the prospect of those reforms coming from the UK. The idea that some of the political power that was handed by the Thatcher government to unaccountable power structures in the City of London, power structures that should be democratically accountable, that should be operating in the interest of the common good and the people instead of the wealthy and the corporate interests, those powers have been handed lock, stock and barrel to corporate city interests. And the UK's political culture is beholden to the City of London. I just don't see that changing. And the issue of disarmament. Many, many people come to support Scottish independence, first and foremost, not out of a flag or 300 years of chip on shoulder Scottish history, but of a desire to get rid of nuclear weapons from the Clyde. What would be the point, even of taking devolution to its maximum potential, of having every power available to us except the power to get rid of those weapons from the Clyde? I just don't see the point of that. I want to say something, though, before I finish, about the people who are not represented in this debate. Because this format, this parliamentary style of debate which we're having, necessitates two sides, a yes and a no side, proposition and opposition. And there are people in Scotland who've already decided, whether because of flag or because of any of the other issues I've mentioned, that they're voting yes. There are other people who've decided, whether because of British identity or any of the other economic questions which Willie, Rennie and others will raise, questions which do need to be answered, there'll be people who've decided they're voting no. In the middle, there are a great many people, I believe, who've yet to make their minds up. People who may be instinctively yes but, or maybe if. I think those people need to be respected, and the opportunity of the next 2 years for people to reflect on the chance for Scotland to go in a different direction. That time needs to be taken, and the people who are not sure yet, in many ways, are the most important people in this debate. I regret that they won't have the opportunity to put a third question, a third option before them on the ballot paper. Mr Rennie's party has done more than most to flesh out what an alternative scenario would be for the Scottish Constitution, doing something different than the current status quo of devolution, or what I like to call the full fat option of independence. Mr Rennie's party have done more than most to try and flesh out what a middle option or an alternative route might be. But that option won't be available to them on the ballot paper, despite opportunities to resolve the technical barriers to putting it on the ballot paper. They won't have the option. I see if Mr Rennie wants to come in again.
I resent Patrick Harvie complimenting the Liberal Democrats on the progress that we have made in putting forward our proposals for Home Rule. But does he not accept there were technical barriers that were not possible to be taken down? That it was not possible to put two very complex questions into the one referendum, and it would just be a recipe for chaos. Does he not accept that?
No, I don't. And Professor Curtis at Strathclyde University has provided options for doing that, which would have been clear and simple. The reality is that as you believe that many people in Scotland do want something in between, those people will be faced with having to vote for their second preference. They won't be given the option of their first preference. And so we'll have, I think, some disappointed people.
Those people will be given an opportunity, we plan, at the next general election to vote for parties that will put forward further change. And we have been very successful at persuading those parties in the past to support further powers, and in fact the Scottish Parliament in the first place were confident of doing so again. Is he not confident of persuading them himself?
Let's just think of what is going to happen after the referendum, because this is where I wanted to get to in my closing remarks. October 2014 is the most likely date, the most likely month for the referendum. That's the best guess at the moment anyway. October 2014. Just months after that, just a few short months after that, the UK political parties will be publishing their manifestos for the 2015 general election. I find it inconceivable that in that time there will be enough momentum around a formulation of further devolution that the political parties at UK level, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, as well as the Liberal Democrats, will be able to agree on something that they can put into their manifestos to offer as jam tomorrow. I find it inconceivable that 2015 election will be able to resolve any other option for Scotland. What I find much more likely, and a dispiriting and depressing prospect, is that after a defeat in a referendum on Scottish independence, the rest of the political landscape, the media pundits, the likes of the Daily Mail and all those poor souls who think it's a newspaper and actually read it every day, and many voters across the rest of the UK will turn around with a single voice and say, enough with Scotland already. You've had your Parliament, you've had your referendum, you've had your Scotland Bill, you've had your devolution. Put up with it now. We're sick of debating it. I believe that a no vote in the referendum will put off that opportunity of genuine fundamental reform for Scotland and a settlement, a Parliament that's able to make the decisions that Scotland knows need to be taken. It'll put that opportunity off for a generation or more if Scotland votes no. A yes vote in October 2014 is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to put our nation onto the right track, to give us the powers to send our environmental credentials into the global landscape and give inspirational leadership to other countries, to work towards a more equal and peaceful society, and to achieve many of the things that I think most of the political parties really, in their heart of hearts, want to do. We can only do that if we have the powers to put our ambitions into practice, and we will only get that if people vote yes in 2014. And I would ask the House to agree with that proposition.
He gives us a Willie, doesn't he?
Thank you.
don't regard that as an invitation. I've just heard one of the best speeches I've ever heard in favour of Scottish independence, Mr. Harvie. It's a bit distressing to find oneself so impressed by a speech from the other side. It's just, Patrick, unfortunately, all those ideals you have, many of which I share, are not, to my mind, compatible with an independent Scotland. This is your chance tonight, Patrick, to face up to that and to cross the floor of the House. It's a moment of history for you, Patrick. You could do it. And Willie Rennie's here, he's a Lib Dem, he'll promise you anything. I'm sorry for that, Willie.
You're supposed to be on my side.
Right, I'm on Willie Rennie's side tonight. I thought it would never happen on the same side as a Lib Dem, but we all have to face reality these days. Now, as a Scot living in London, I have to contend with a lot of anti-Scottish prejudice. I hear English people saying to me that the Scots are belligerent and mean and much too fond of the bottle. And we know that some of that at least is untrue. Especially the meanness. I don't believe the Scots are mean. And because I don't believe the Scots are mean, and because I'm always defending them against that charge, I can tell you about my first visit to St Andrews, which was about 30 years ago, and it was also November, and it was much colder even than tonight, and I was staying in a little guest house, and the landlady opened the door and led me up the stairs to my room, and she said, I knew you were coming, and I know it's been a bit cold, so I switched on the bedside lamp just to take the chill off the air. There we are, but we're not mean. I know we're not mean. But let's come to the really serious question of the evening. The serious question of the evening I want to ask all of you is this. Has milking come to St Andrews? Now, not many people, obviously, are up with this. I know more about student affairs than the students. I understand that students all over the country are taking cartons of milk and pouring it over their heads. It obviously hasn't reached St Andrews yet. I'm quite disappointed. I think it will come your way. I read about it the other day. It seemed to me a very silly thing, but it didn't seem to me nearly as silly as Scottish independence. Now, I don't know if this has ever been done in this chamber before, but I would now like to present to the House a pornographic picture. I hope that's in the rules, Mr. President, Miss President. It's a picture of two people in a perverted and unnatural relationship. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but here it is. For those at the back, this is a picture of Alex Salmond with Her Majesty the Queen. Now, I have to be very careful here because I read the rules before I came tonight, and it says in the rules, disparaging comments concerning Her Majesty are completely inappropriate and may result in expulsion from the chamber. It's certainly a hotbed of radicalism here in St Andrews. You know, now that we're going to keep the crown, apparently, according to Alex Salmond, I mean, Patrick speaks as if Alex Salmond is just a sideshow, and it's really the Greens are running it. I wish you were, Patrick, but you're not. So I wonder what's happened to that